Hello, welcome to my session. My session is titled Flow. Hello, welcome to my session. Flow is for fun. Sometimes we make flows just for fun. A little bit about me. My name is John Liu. I call myself the Flow Ninja. I work for a SharePoint company, SharePoint Gurus. I'm a developer, I'm a consultant, I blog a lot, quite opinionated, but generally I'm a kind person. Help out with the SharePoint Office 365 Saturdays in Australia. I'm around various conferences in Australia. I am a MVP in Office, in particular in SharePoint, and I'm also MVP in business applications in Microsoft Flow. You can find me on Twitter at John N. Liu, so there's an extra N, and you can also find my blog at johnliu.net. The plan for this quick session, there's really only two points. The plan for this quick session is we want to talk about the many reasons why I want to explain the many reasons why we should all be writing flows for fun. And then I wanted to show quite a few flow demos. They are fun demos, fun flows. I wanted to show quite a few fun flows, but not as many as I could. So we're going to stick to three fun flows. And that's the many reasons we write flows for fun. Well, firstly, exercise our creativity. So flow could be very logical. You have a creative mind. Should take the opportunity to exercise it. Sometimes it's good to stop and think about, we have a really crazy idea. What if we could take this thing and put it into that thing? And surprisingly, flow is very good at building out a path from X to Y. So this helps us think about how to link these systems together. We play with building blocks in flow that we may not be actually using at work. And you'll see this maybe later when I show off some of these fun flows. They use fairly sophisticated flow functionality that you may not have a situation to use in your work scenario yet, but you get to play with them because you're writing a fun flow and you are you set the requirements on what this flow needs to do. Play is the best way to learn. I firmly believe that. I keep playing. I play with flow. And finally, apply that learning back into our work scenario. So a lot of these fun flows I want to demo, they have this fun factor and then how does it work, how is it built. But then at the end, I want to discuss a little bit about how you may take that idea and put that into a workflow or personal automation, put that back into a work scenario. Let's go. So the first demo, I call it the Pick Your Own Adventure demo. I come across these choose your own adventure books where you're reading the story and then at the end of it, you get to pick, go to page 7 for the next part or go to page 48 for the next part. And there are all kinds of different endings in the book. Basically, you have to flip between pages to get your story and you choose where do you want to go. I love the Steve Jackson's The Warlock of Firetop Mountain, and I love Edward's The Cave of Time. Let's look at how we might build something like that in Flow. In Flow, you say? Yes, in Flow. So here I have my SharePoint site where I've stored parts of the story. So the story of choosing your own flow adventure starts here. You're standing in front of a cave, so on and so forth. Dramatic reading. This is actually HTML field, and these are simple text, but this is HTML. And I want to draw your attention to this particular step, which basically gives me a list of links to link to. So you could have an action called enter, and it goes to the second step, so the ID 2. And you can have multiple actions. You can go back, or you can go forward to step 3. Okay, so basically I build out my story like so. And then choose my own flow adventure. We'll call this flow, and it's actually a HTTP. It is a flow that could be triggered manually. So this trigger is called a HTTP request trigger. When we say first time, it will generate this URL. I basically only want 2 arguments. I want step and I want email. So if I use sample to generate, I will say step, and that will be a number, say 1, and I want an email, which is like, johnliu@x.com. And that will basically generate this. That could be integer, it could be number. Next step, I define a few variables. So there is a variable for step. This is the current page I'm on. So when you start your story, you go to page 1. So that is the step 1. There's a bit of an expression. It basically says take the step from the parameter here. But if it's not specified, then we're going to start with 1. So default to 1, otherwise use the parameter being passed in. So that's what the code list does. The next part, we start with an email. So if the email is provided, we use email. Otherwise, I actually just test and use my own email address. Now, next one, this is an array of all the different actions we could do at this current step. Right now it's empty. We're going to read it in a second. And then in this first step, we want to find the next part of the story. So I'm using a SharePoint get item to get this row from my SharePoint record. So I'm looking for, say, page 1. I want to get the story, I want to get the title of the story, and then I want to get these possible actions. So this little array of possible actions. So I'm passing the step, which is the variable, getting that from the list. Then I'm actually setting the array of actions. So I'm reading the value using the actions expression, but I want to actually, rather than keeping it as text, I want to convert to array. So I'm passing it through another expression called JSON. So basically it turns that JSON string into a JSON object. And then finally, I wanted a quick list of all the actions, not both the action and the step, but just the action. So what that means is I wanted, say here, I just want to go back or go forward as two values. And then the next part, I send an email. So this choose your own flow adventure. Each page is sent to you as an email. And this is not a simple email. This is an email with options. So we will send it to this email and we will use the different options. So the different type of actions we could do, whether it's go back or go forward. The body, so this is a HTML. So we send the email and we're using the HTML. Send email with options is quite a special action within Flow. When we send the email, the user gets a little card with all the different options that they can click on. And the options are actually constructed by me reading the list. So for each page, we send the user a different set of actions. And based on what they click, this send email with action will return and give me the selected option. So when I'm here, I'm basically comparing the list of actions that we have, picking the one that has this action that matches the one that they returned. And if it doesn't exist, so if this result does not exist, then we finish. There's no more story to tell. But otherwise, we pick the actual ID. So from this action, which may say go forward to, let me show you here, may say go forward to step 1 or go backward to step 3. It will show you, it will take you to step 1 or step 3. So it will take you to 1 or take you to 3 when you're on 2. And then the self-fulfilling loop. Imagine we're reading the book, right? When you decide what to do, you go to that page. So it goes, this HTTP calls this method with the new step and the same email address, and basically repeats this loop. So that's the whole construct of picking a page, sending it to the user, let the user pick which page they want to continue, go to that page. So basically looping again. Now to start this, so I built a second flow to start this. This one's very simple. It's a menu button that asks for email address, and it basically calls that flow with the email to start. Okay, so if we just run this, perform the action, just use that one and then run. So you see it started. We'll see that the flow is running. It is running on page step 1. It is picking an item from my SharePoint list that says the O begins. It is sending me an email, but this step is still in progress, so we can't view it. Now, if I come over to my email, you will see, it sent me an email. So this is the HTML sent to me from the SharePoint list. And these are the actions I can. So these are, because I'm in the web view, when I click this, they open in a different page. So I'm just opening them in another tab. But because when I click it, that flow finished, and you will have noticed that I got a new email for the next step. If I say, okay, go forward, and you'll see, what's that? It is dark. You can't really see any further. You hear a slushing sound behind you. So you'll see the flow is basically calling itself and looping. So that is choose your own flow adventure. It's quite a fun example. And it doesn't have an output, but it is actually calling itself. So it is actually kind of a recursive loop, but it does ask the user for input. So it waits in the middle. You can see this one's waiting. Previous ones that I have not replied to for months or hours. So yeah, but as each email come back, then another run will continue. And this flow adventure could be played by many players at the same time. So it's a lot better than the book I have, where, only I could read it, or only my brother could read it, but we couldn't read at the same time without getting into fights. Possibly quite a good scenario if you're building some sort of simple email onboarding step. So as an employee, you joins your company, you may have a series of tasks you want them to do, and you will send them an email, and then, so that could be something that you build at work as a kind of an email induction. And even as they click through these induction steps, you could be tracking that, okay, so-and-so has really finished the induction. All right, let me end this example here and go back to my slides. And the second demo I wanted to do, this is a demo about getting football results. And I wrote this around the time of the Soccer World Cup. And it was played in Russia. And the games will happen at about 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. in Australia. It wasn't really a time where I could stay up every weekend and watch the football. So at the time there was a thought that, well, why don't I write a flow and tell me about it? So the first thing, and here's the flow, let me just go. So the first thing I did was, well, how do I get the results? And I quickly Googled and found that there are several companies organizations that provide this data. And I come across this one, api.football. If I call V1 competitions, I'll get back a small JSON about each of the competitions that are currently running. The World Cup is finished, so I don't see anymore. But back then it was running, so I was able to see, which number, which is 467. 467 is actually the World Cup. So where is the name? Here we go. World Cup 2018 Russia. And from there, I was able to also see fixtures, I believe. And these are actually all the games. So every one of the games that happened in the World Cup, what were the results, who win, who lost, and so on. So armed with this data, and this data was updating every time there was a game. So armed with this data, I was able to write my flow. And the flow works like this. Firstly, we need some sort of trigger. To be able to run them manually, I just use a manual trigger here. But back during the World Cup, I had a schedule trigger, and it ran twice on the days that the games ran, which is usually a weekend, one of the 2 weekends. To simplify it, I've got this one. So this is the URL to the football data with the fixtures, so all the games. Then using a send the HTTP action, this is a get with the URL. This will get back the JSON of all the football with all the scores. And then I use parse JSON to open and make sense of this data. Now, to really do this, generally, this is the trick that I will employ. I will build out these two, the URL and then the get, these two. And then I will run it. So pretend these other steps don't exist here. We just code the football data. So pretend these don't exist. Then open this and come down here to where the body is and basically copy all this data out. Okay, so that's your actual live data that came back from the service. And then right after the HTTP, you know that this returns a body of information. Use the action called parse JSON, use a sample, and in your clipboard, that's the actual live data of what the football looks like, right? And if you did okay, then what Flow will do is it will actually generate this JSON schema. So it basically tells all these actions afterwards, select, create table, what this output looks like. So this parse JSON with the schema defines what is otherwise just a big blob of data. It basically gives it a schema to say, okay, it's going to have an array of fixtures. Fixtures going to have a home team and an away team, and so on and so forth. And who win, what was the score at halftime, and all that. Following that, then everything gets easier. We use a select to basically, there are a lot of fields inside the tag fixtures. We only want certain ones. So from parse JSON, we want fixtures, which is the array collection of games. And then for many of these fields, on which day, and we want, let me scroll down, we want the match day here, and then the home team name, the away team name, so on and so forth, the status, whether the game was still running, whether it's yet to play, or whether it's finished. I also did this expression with the date. So we take the game day, which is, I copied here, the item's date. So item refers to each element in this array that we are selecting over. And I'm doing a convert using an expression to convert that to my time zone. And that is actually the time day here. That's actually the Australian date. And once I perform this select, what I basically have is I have an array of fixtures with very nested data, with very nested JSON object. I basically map it to a much simpler array of just games with these about 7 properties. And once I've done that, I use the create HTML table. That's another action. And really, I'm just using the default value. So I'm using select. I want the headers and I want the column to be automatic. I'm not even defining any of the columns in the HTML table. So basically, it will loop over all 7 of these columns and just create the HTML table. My last step is I actually write the table to a file within SharePoint. And within SharePoint, I wrote a web path that picks up the file and draws it's really a big HTML table, so it basically draws it inside SharePoint. Let me run that again. And it's finished. If I just expand the HTML table here, let me see. Let's give it the max height. So I use CSS and knock out the max height. But here you can see the HTML table that's generated from the array. You can see all these games have finished by now. And then, of course, the heartbreak, France, Croatia at the end. All right. And actually, let me quickly show SharePoint as well. Right, and I come to my SharePoint site, and basically in SharePoint, I just have the HTML printed right into one of the modern pages. Okay, so this part I didn't do that much work. You know, we could run a notification to someone's phone, wake them up at 5 a.m. to tell them their team's about to lose and get kicked out. And yeah, there are many applications for where you might take these ideas. This is quite useful for if you're into sports and following your favorite team. Most sports have some sort of API that you can find, which means you can build this type of systems. And the best part about this is it goes and fetch the data at 3 a.m. so you don't have to stay up to watch your team lose. Back to the next demo. So the third demo I have today this is quite a fun one. This is about controlling Minecraft running in your desktop. Okay, and we're gonna do this from Flow. This is pretty crazy. This one needs a bit of setup. Firstly, I'll need to run Minecraft. This is totally, this is my local run group Minecraft. It is running in my local machine. Oh, there's a new update. I am going to play a demo world. Well, that's funny. I'm actually flying in the air. This is Minecraft in a creative mode. Now, next part. I need the Power BI gateway. Okay, so there's that. And we need one more. We need code connection for Minecraft. Well, I set this up. Let me explain. So this is Minecraft. This is standard Minecraft running in Windows. And let me pop that in here. And so that's standard Minecraft. Code connection is something built by the Minecraft education team. It gives your Minecraft running instance a REST API. Right, and the way once it's connected through the endpoint, it code connection offers these four kind of coding learning platforms. You can use MakeCode or Scratch to basically program your Minecraft and teach your kids. Quite a fun exercise to do. But in addition, you can also add other services because code connection provides a REST endpoint, which we can call using a localhost endpoint to basically talk to Minecraft. And what I have here then is I'm running the Power BI gateway, which lets me call these REST APIs from Flow from the cloud. So basically I want Flow running in the cloud, reach through the common, the on-premises data gateway to talk to my REST API, to talk to Minecraft. Now let's have a look at the flow side. So this is my flow. Let's give a bit more screen first. So you can see I have a trigger, just a button trigger, and I have a few actions. I wave in the forward direction, put down a table, move the robot up, and then place a cake. Okay, and I could show this Minecraft action step. This is actually a custom connection. And you see Minecraft code connection. Now I have, so the code connection provides a whole bunch of endpoints, probably 60 endpoints. I've only wrote 3 of them. Attack, which is kind of a hand waving. So I call a wave down here, but it's actually attack. So don't stand in front of the robot. And then move it around and also place items from the robot. This is a custom connection that I built over here. And then let's make that small again. Let's put that on the side here. Right, I'm gonna test. Run the robot script and the robot flow. You can see the robot is waving. He's put down the cake. I like to show this because it's a lot of fun. You could see lots of ideas. You could, you have a very simple flow that could control a robot that flies around. But if you're a teacher teaching using Minecraft education in your classroom, then you can totally go to town with this. You can get your robot to do a whole bunch of different things. Put down the blackboard, take over NPCs that are in town, and then tell them to, fight back the students that are trying to kill the NPC. So that's on the one end. You could just play with Minecraft and it's really cool. But on the other hand, this is also a really over-the-top demo of the on-premises data gateway. And imagine in your business, you may not have a REST endpoint for Minecraft, but you have REST endpoints, also XML endpoints for your existing on-premises systems. And the on-premises data gateway gives your Flow and Power Apps a way to call these on-premises APIs in a safe way. The messages are passed back and forth through a service bus, so it's never exposed on the internet for everyone to see. And you can see these actions they take a small bit of time because they do a round trip, right? Flow is calling the wave action. It is being called through the data gateway. The code connection executes it and then responds. And that same response is passed all the way back to Flow. So there are small delays between these actions. But you can kind of see how this whole thing works from end to end. And that's the Minecraft demo. Minecraft with a cake. So I want to wrap up this talk with 3 things. First is take some time to write some fun flows. It's not always about workflows. Take some time to write some fun flows. You will enjoy them the most and you learn the most. And then you'll be surprised. It comes back to help you automate or when you're doing your work and something that you play with and that's something that stays with you. So thank you very much for watching my session. I hope you enjoyed the rest of this conference. Bye!